Hello friends, imagine standing in a sea of people, the air thick with tension, hope, and fire. It's the evening of the 8th of August 1942, Gwalior Tank Maidan in Mumbai. The sky is heavy, the crowd restless, and on that small stage stands a frail, calm man wrapped in khadi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. The British Empire, proud and powerful, rules over 1/4 of the earth. And yet, in that single moment, Gandhi's words make the impossible sound inevitable. Every one of you should consider yourself free. We can no longer live under the shoes of imperialism. I give you a mantra, do or die. Either we will see India free or we will die in the attempt. The crowd erupts, do or die. Do or die, and just like that, the Quit India movement begins. Not just a political uprising, but a revolution of hearts. What many didn't know that night was that the British were already prepared. For months, their Home Department had been crafting a 3-step plan to crush this rebellion before it even started. Step 1. Silence the media. No newspaper was to print a single line about Congress or Gandhi's call for freedom. Step 2. Destroy the organization, raid the Congress offices, seize their funds, arrest every leader who dared to speak. Step 3. Use emergency powers to declare the entire movement anti-national and end it before it could even breathe. And that's exactly what happened. Within hours of Gandhi's speech, on the morning of the 9th of August 1942, Gandhi, Nehru, Sardar Patel, Maulana Azad, and the entire top leadership were arrested. Gandhi was taken to the Aga Khan Palace in Pune, not a jail, because the British feared that calling it a jail would anger the public. They wanted to pretend it was just house arrest. Congress was banned. Their offices sealed, their workers hunted. And yet, the flame of freedom refused to die. When the voice of Gandhi was silenced, a new voice rose from the shadows, that of 22-year-old Usha Mehta, with a small transmitter and a handful of fearless friends. She started an underground radio station, Congress Radio 40.34, secretly broadcasting Gandhi's message to the nation. This is Congress Radio calling from somewhere in India. Her voice would echo across the airwaves. In reality, she was hiding in Bombay, constantly changing her location to stay ahead of British spies. For 3 months, she kept that radio alive until finally, in November 1942, she was caught. The British tortured and interrogated her for months, but she didn't reveal a single name. Years later, she said, "When the press is gagged and all news banned, a transmitter certainly helps to spread the message of rebellion." At the same time, thousands across India took Gandhi's words to heart. Ordinary people, students, farmers, factory workers, old men, and even grandmothers all joined in. In Bengal, a 72-year-old woman named Matangini Hazra, lovingly called Gandhi Bori, led a rally of 6,000 people. Her goal was to hoist the tricolor at the Tamlik police station. Police opened fire, bullets hit her 3 times, but even as she fell, she kept shouting Vande Mataram with the flag still in her hands. Decades later, her statue would be erected in Kolkata, the first woman revolutionary to be so honored. All over India, such stories unfolded. Students going on strike, villagers blocking railways, farmers refusing to pay taxes, factory workers walking out of mills in Bombay and Ahmedabad. Post offices, police stations, and government buildings were attacked, symbols of British power crumbling under the weight of people's anger. The British responded brutally. Ram Manohar Lohia later wrote that over 50,000 revolutionaries were killed, and more than 1 lakh arrested. Among them were names that later became legends. Sukhdev Kripalani, who led her own underground network, and later became the first woman chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. Aruna Asaf Ali, who hoisted the Congress flag on the 9th of August and became known as the Grand Old Lady of the independence movement. And Jayaprakash Narayan, who broke out of Hazaribagh jail with 7 others on Diwali night in 1942 and fled to Nepal to continue the fight as part of the Azad Dastan. Even though the movement was leaderless, it was unstoppable. Gandhi himself was locked away, yet his voice echoed in every street, in every home. The people had internalized his message. They no longer waited for leaders to act. They themselves became the movement. And despite all the propaganda and suppression, the spirit of rebellion spread faster than the British could contain it. Not everyone, however, stood with India's freedom fighters. There were groups that chose to side with the British. The Muslim League, led by Jinnah, and the Hindu Mahasabha, under Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, both opposed the Quit India movement. They called it reckless and irresponsible. In Bengal, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, then a minister in the Muslim League Hindu Mahasabha coalition government, wrote to the British on how to prevent the movement from spreading in the province. Anybody who plans to stir up mass feelings during the war must be resisted by the government, he wrote. Essentially, he was advising the British on how to crush his own countrymen. At the same time, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or RSS, chose to stay silent. British intelligence noted that the RSS had scrupulously kept itself within the law and refrained from taking part in the disturbances. On the other hand, Subhash Chandra Bose, exiled in Berlin, openly supported the movement. Through his Azad Hind radio, he declared that this was India's non-violent guerrilla warfare and urged Gandhi's followers to stay strong. He even appealed directly to Jinnah and Savarkar, saying, "In the world of tomorrow, there will be no British Empire," while Bose was raising his Azad Hind Fauj to fight the British militarily. Savarkar was helping the colonial government recruit more Indians into the British armed forces, many of whom would later end up fighting against Bose's army. Among them were Narayan Apt, who would later be convicted in Gandhi's assassination, and Gopal Godse, brother of Nathuram Godse. History truly can be cruel in its ironies. Still, the Quit India movement had achieved something extraordinary. For the first time, the British realized they could no longer rule India without constant violence and repression. Viceroy Linlithgow himself wrote to Winston Churchill saying, "I am facing the most serious rebellion since that of 1857. The British Empire was cracking." And while Gandhi had always preached non-violence, this time he refused to stop the movement even when violence broke out. In his magazine Harijan, he wrote, "I waited and waited for the country to develop non-violent strength necessary to throw off the foreign yoke. I feel I cannot afford to wait any longer. If, in spite of all precautions, rioting takes place, it cannot be helped." For the first time, Gandhi accepted that India's freedom was worth even chaos because slavery was worse. The Quit India movement didn't immediately drive the British out, but it changed everything. The world started watching. Even in Britain, people began to demand that India be freed. The United States, led by President Roosevelt, pressured Britain to meet Indian demands. By 1945, when World War II ended, the British were exhausted, politically, economically, and morally. That year, the Labour Party came to power under Clement Attlee, promising to end colonial rule. True to their word, they began the process of granting India self-governance. Gandhi and other leaders were released from prison, and the countdown to freedom had begun. In 1946, two more events, the Aina trials and the Royal Indian Navy mutiny, shook the empire even further. Indian soldiers, who had once fought for the British, were now turning against them. The very foundation of British rule, loyalty of the armed forces, was collapsing. The writing was on the wall. And on the 15th of August 1947, India finally broke its chains. The dream that began on that night in 1942, when Gandhi said "do or die," became a reality. Before we continue, my friend, if you're still watching till now, take a deep breath and think. We live in a free nation today because ordinary people decided to risk everything. People who didn't have power, money, or weapons, just courage and conviction. If stories like these move you, if they make you proud to be Indian, then hit that subscribe button right now. Let's keep our history alive together, because forgetting it would be the real defeat. Looking back, one cannot help but wonder, what would we have done if we were there? Would we have dared to stand up or stayed silent in fear? The Quit India movement wasn't just a chapter in a history book, it was a test of the nation's soul. A reminder that even the mightiest empire can fall when ordinary people refuse to obey unjust power. It taught us that freedom is never given, it's taken with courage and sacrifice. And today, as we enjoy that freedom, we must remember those who gave their lives without ever seeing the sunrise of independence. From Usha Mehta's secret broadcasts, to Matangini Hazra's dying cry of Van Mataram, to Gandhi's unwavering call for self-rule, every act, every voice, and every sacrifice built the foundation of the India we live in. So friends, now I want to know what you think. Do you believe India's freedom came because of Gandhi's non-violence or because of the mass rebellion and sacrifices of common people? Comment below. Your thoughts matter. Let's discuss, debate, and most importantly, never forget the people who chose to do or die so that we could live free.